promise you, because I will not quit until it pays off. Find yourself hanging around people who will encourage you, folks. Once you have a plan, once you have decided to endure the pain, my friend, you had better find some new friends. And that takes us to the next step in the H.E.N.R.Y formula. The next letter is R. Will you say this after me? Read. Say it again. Read. So read what? Well, a good thing to read is to read about people who have similar talents. Read about people who are being successful in the area that you think you want to go into. Let me give you just a few of the books that I began to read concerning how to own a business, how to improve as a speaker, and how to understand how to deal with wealth, deal with money. One of the books that I began to read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Highly recommended. The other book was The E-Myth. The E for entrepreneur. It talks about some of the misconceptions and ideas that people have about what it's like to run a business and what you need to be doing to run a business. And a lot of these myths are what cause businesses to fail within the first few years. The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Highly recommended. And then Effective Speaking by Dale Carnegie. And that pretty much speaks for itself, right? Excellent books. You have Proverbs chapter 4. Let's read this together. This is verse 7. And I'm going to read just the first part of the verse, but I want you to read verses 7 through 13 on your own time. But let's read this together. Getting wisdom is the most important thing you can do. Think about that. Think about all of the things that you can do. But the Bible says getting wisdom is the most important thing. And reading and learning from other people is the best way to get wisdom. Read. That's why we read the Bible. We want to learn from people who have been there before us. We want to learn from the disciples who lived back in the day where you die for the name of Christ. I want to learn from Jesus, learn about what it means to pursue a dream, looking at the goal and not looking at the pain that you're enduring right now. I need to learn those things. And through some of these books that I read, I learned a lot about business and am still learning. So I encourage you to read. And that brings us to the last step in the formula. The last letter in the H.E.N.R.Y formula is Y. Read that after me. You are responsible for the results. Read it again. You are responsible for the results. You must take responsibility for the results. And on August the 16th, 2008, I found myself in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, standing in front of an international audience. 50 of those 1,400 people were judges, and I was one of 10 speakers from around the world competing for the international speech contest. This was the World Championship of Public Speaking, and before I went on that stage, I just took a pause. And I said, I have accomplished my goal. I'm here. Here I am. I've practiced, I've studied, I've rehearsed, I've rewritten my speech, and he's calling my name. Lord have mercy. Y'all, my heart started to beat. Our next speaker, Henry Flowers IV. No regrets. No regrets. Henry Flowers IV. And man, the audience cheered, and I walked out from that curtain, and I went and shook the Toastmaster's hand, and I walked back to center stage, and I sat there and I smiled at all of those people and said, I'm getting ready to die. Oh, I thought everybody in that place could see my knees knocking, y'all. I kid you not. But because of the preparation, because of all the rehearsing, because of the talent that I have, that I've been given by God, when I said my first word, I was unaware of myself. And for 7.5 minutes, I tore into that speech, got off that stage, sat down, and just sat back and reminisced on all of it. And I declare to you folks, I have never felt more fulfilled. That was a high point for me in my life. It was a flawless performance on my part, but I have to admit, I was disappointed when they called first place and they didn't call my name. I was disappointed. But in spite of the pain that I felt at that moment, there was no one clapping and screaming louder than I was for H.E.N.R.Y Rundles. Nobody was clapping louder than me. Folks, rejoice when other people rejoice. Please do that. Because if you don't, you run the risk of being one of those dream smashers. If you don't learn how to rejoice when other people rejoice, you run the risk of being one of those crabs. And when you see one of them getting pulled up, you want to grab a hold so you can go up too. But it's not your time. It's not your destination. You're not supposed to be going to that restaurant. They want you to stay in the bucket so you can go to another restaurant. You run that risk. Rejoice when other people rejoice. And to be honest, it didn't hurt for too long because she was the best speaker that day. Hands down. Hands down. She was the best speaker that day. And listen, when it comes to personal responsibility, the bottom line is this. If your talents aren't paying off, don't blame anyone else but yourself. My speech was not as good as hers. I didn't communicate to an audience well enough. That was the best I could do at that time. That was not my best speech. I enjoyed my semifinal speech more than I enjoyed my international speech. But that's okay. I didn't win. I'm straight. I'm okay right now. Go to my website, henryflowerswebsite.com, and you'll be able to at least hear all of my speeches. Some of them actually, I have the videos, and you'll be able to see my international speech. And you'll listen to it, you say, hey, man, that wasn't bad. He did a good job. But I ain't putting H.E.N.R.Y Rundle's speech on my website. I ain't doing it. Nope. I ain't gonna let y'all see how bad she beat us, boy. Woo, y'all. I'm telling you, it was one of those ones where you had to been there. She hit about 4 home runs over the course of about 6 minutes, and man, you could just feel it reverberate throughout the audience. When 1,400 people on one accord go, ooh, that's power. And every judge in the audience felt it about 4 times. Ooh. Knocked it out the park, y'all. And nobody was clapping louder than I was. I didn't cry until I went backstage. I was fine after that. Do you have Romans chapter 14? As a matter of fact, don't get it. We're going to read it together. Talking about personal responsibility here. Listen to this. Let's read this together. Romans chapter 14 and verse 12. Ready? Read. So then, every one of us shall give account of himself to God. You will not be responsible for the person who has been given 5 talents. It's not your job to worry about whether the person who had 10 talents actually has 20 now that the master has returned. You will be responsible for the talents that you have been given, whether it's 3, whether it's 1, or whether it's 50. He is going to walk up to you face to face and say, Oliver Lee, what have you done with the talents that I've given you? Personal responsibility. If it's not going well, you need to do something different, Janet. If you're not being encouraged, you either need to learn how to encourage yourself or surround yourself with encouragers. If your CDs aren't selling as much as you want them, you need to sing more, advertise more, or give away more of them. Something needs to change. All right? Personal responsibility. Listen to what Oprah Winfrey has to say. Now, I know you don't subscribe to everything she believes, but I believe this is a good thing here. She says, I don't think of myself as a poor, deprived ghetto girl who